You really think you can hit that target? Focus, soldier. You might actually hit something.
A decorated black woman, once erased from history despite being a legendary sniper, walks into a U.S. shooting range where a powerful general mocks her as a joke, unaware of her past. What begins as ridicule grows into open hostility, as his racist taunts escalate in front of soldiers who first laugh but soon shift in silence when she demonstrates unmatched skill, exposing his ignorance. Whispers spread, cracks form in his authority, until his mask of power breaks with slurs and rage caught on video, unleashing his downfall as the military itself strips him of rank and respect. While he drowns in disgrace, she stands tall, her record restored, her legacy reclaimed, leaving behind a quiet but thunderous lesson that truth buried by hate will always rise again. Maya Thompson walked into the shooting range just after noon. The air inside carried the sharp scent of oil and burnt gunpowder. Her boots struck the concrete floor with quiet rhythm. She didn't hurry. She didn't need to. A few heads turned immediately. A black woman, alone, at a military-sponsored range, whispered. Laughter stirred in the corner. Lost. One soldier muttered, not softly enough. Another chuckled, probably here to watch, not shoot. Maya ignored them. She moved toward the registration desk, placed her ID down, and waited. Behind her, voices swelled. The general had arrived. General Harrington, chest covered in medals that gleamed even under fluorescent lights, walked like the building belonged to him. A tall man, broad-shouldered, with the air of someone used to being obeyed without question. His eyes landed on Maya, and a smirk crept across his lips. "Well, this is new," he said loudly, enough for the room to hear. Didn't know the range opened to hobbyists. Snickers spread through the group. Maya kept her eyes forward. "I'm here to shoot." Harrington's smirk widened. "Of course you are. And I'm the Easter Bunny." The men laughed. The narrator's voice cut in, like a blade through the noise. This was how it worked. One man mocked, the rest followed. It wasn't just about bullets, it was about hierarchy, about who was allowed to exist in the room without question. Maya signed the paper, picked her lane, and walked away without looking back. But Harrington wasn't done. "You sure you know which end of the gun does the work?" he called out. His tone was playful, but the undercurrent was sharp, designed to sting. She placed her bag down, unzipped it carefully, and pulled out her gear. Gloves, protective glasses, calm hands, quiet type, huh? Harrington stepped closer. "That's fine. We like a little entertainment." The crowd shifted. Some laughed, others stayed silent. Silence was safer. That Maya adjusted her stance. Her silence wasn't fear. It was patience. The narrator again. They thought they were watching a lamb in a wolf's den. They had no idea the lamb carried teeth sharper than theirs. She loaded her weapon, lifted it smoothly, and sighted down the lane. The first shot cracked like thunder. Dead center. A soldier blinked. Beginner's luck. Maya reset. Fired again. Another clean strike. No expression crossed her face. No pride, no performance, just precision. Harrington clapped slowly. Well, maybe you can hold a gun, after all." He leaned closer, his voice dripping mockery. "But let's see how long that lasts. Some of us were born for this." The crowd laughed again. Maya lowered her weapon, finally turning her eyes to his, calm, unflinching. Her silence spoke louder than his noise. This was only the beginning. The shooting range echoed with bursts of gunfire, but the laughter carried further than the sound of bullets. General Harrington leaned against the divider, arms crossed, grin sharp as a blade. His eyes stayed fixed on Maya. "Well, gentlemen," his voice boomed. "Looks like we've got ourselves a sharpshooter." He chuckled, at least in her imagination. More laughter. Maya adjusted her magazine. Methodical, unshaken. "You deaf, sweetheart?" Harrington pressed. "Or just pretending you can't hear me? You know, silence doesn't make you stronger. It just makes the jokes funnier." One soldier muttered near him. "Never seen a woman in here alone, let alone." He cut himself off. But the sneer said the rest. Maya spoke at last, voice low, steady. "I came here to shoot, not to talk." A ripple went through the group. Not defiance, not fear, just certainty. Harrington raised his eyebrows, savoring the moment. "Shoot, not talk. Well, isn't that convenient? But see, in my house, you don't get the luxury of being invisible." He gestured toward the men. "Tell me, Do any of you believe this lady can outshoot a general of the United States Army? No, sir, one answered quickly. Not a chance, another said. She fooled, someone muttered. The room filled with low laughter, layered, infectious. It wasn't about belief. It was about safety. No one wanted to be the outlier. The narrator's voice cut in. It was ritual, a script rehearsed for generations. One voice set the tone. The rest followed. Each laugh a currency to buy belonging. To refuse was to risk exile. To join was to survive. Harrington stepped closer to her lane. Why don't you put on a show for us, darling? Let's see what you've really got. Maya slid the rifle forward, checked the chamber, then looked at him briefly. Calm, cool. Her eyes carried something sharper than disdain. History. I don't perform, she said, gasps, half-suppressed laughter. Doesn't perform, Harrington repeated mockingly. Then why are you here? To meditate. She gave no answer. He wasn't satisfied. He leaned in, lowering his voice just enough to slice. You know, I've seen a lot of people come through here thinking they're somebody, but the ones who matter. They wear uniforms. They earn it. Not whatever this is. His hand gestured at her like she was an object, not a person. Maya reloaded calmly, each motion precise, efficient. The soldiers murmured. She's too calm. One whispered, nah, she chokes soon. Another dismissed. Harrington's grin widened. He raised his voice again. Tell you what, gentlemen, why don't we give her a little challenge? Let's say, he scanned the range, 10 shots, 60 seconds. Center mass, we'll see if she can even compete. Cheers broke out. Someone slapped the divider, egging it on. Maya finally turned fully toward him, her voice even, and if I can, the laughter faltered slightly. The quiet confidence in her tone unsettled them. Harrington tilted his head, grinned frozen. If you can, then maybe I'll buy you a drink, or a medal for effort. But if you can't, and we all know you can't, well, you'll know your place. The crowd erupted again. The narrator pressed. Every word was a cage. Every laugh, a bar sealing it shut. The bet wasn't about bullets. It was about dignity, about who had the right to stand, to breathe, to be seen. Maya's eyes didn't waver. Fine, she said simply. The room hushed. Agreement wasn't expected. Harrington blinked once, then clapped his hands together. Excellent. A little entertainment. Men, line it up. Targets at 50 meters. Soldiers rushed to adjust the range, voices buzzing with cruel excitement. One whispered, she's gonna miss. Another replied, even if she doesn't, no one beats the general. Maya checked her weapon again. The weight in her hands was familiar, comforting. Her stillness was not weakness, it was focus. Harrington leaned closer one last time. I almost feel bad. Almost. Maya gave him nothing in return. The stage was set, but the act wasn't hers to perform, it was his to collapse under. The range went silent except for the hum of the overhead lights. Every eye fixed on Maya and the general. Targets slid into position, fresh sheets of white with bold red centers. 50 meters down, the paper swayed slightly in the air currents. General Harrington stepped forward, chest out, medals glinting. He clapped once, loud. Ladies and gentlemen, he announced, you're about to see the difference between a hobbyist and a soldier, between pretense and power. Laughter rippled again, though quieter than before. Maya stood steady. Her weapon rested easily in her hands, her body aligned in calm readiness. She neither smiled nor frowned. The narrator's voice slipped through the tension. This was how oppression disguised itself: mockery, clothed as entertainment, degradation paraded as tradition. They thought this stage was his. They didn't realize she had built it before him, piece by piece. In shadows they could never endure. Harrington raised his weapon first. I'll start, he said, so you know what the bar looks like. He took his stance deliberately. Broad shoulders square, breathing loud, dramatic for the audience. He squeezed the trigger. The crack echoed sharp. The bullet struck near center. Applause followed. Another shot. Closer. Applause again. 10 rounds later, his target was chewed with clustered holes. Not perfect, but impressive enough to keep the crowd cheering. He set his weapon down, smirking. That, my friends, is what years of service buys you. Control, precision, respect. He glanced at Maya. Your turn, darling. She stepped forward without hesitation. Her silence stretched. The room grew restless. One soldier whispered, she's nervous. Another muttered, look at her hands, to calm. It's weird. Maya lowered her goggles, steadied her breathing, and raised her weapon. Her stance wasn't flashy. It was efficient, quiet, disciplined. The general crossed his arms, waiting for the stumble, the misstep, the proof of his superiority. The first shot cracked, direct center. The room flinched. Someone laughed nervously. Lucky. Second shot, center. Third, center again. Her rhythm was steady, unbroken. 10 shots slid out in calm succession, each one landing with mechanical precision. When the paper target reeled back, it bore a single torn hole where every bullet had passed through the same spot. The room fell silent. The narrator cut in. This was the silence no one planned for, the silence when lies collapse under truth, the silence when superiority meets reality and fractures. Harrington's smirk faltered. He forced a chuckle. Well, beginner's luck is a funny thing. Sometimes lightning strikes twice. He leaned closer, voice sharper. But this isn't over. Not by a long shot. The men shifted, caught between awe and loyalty. Someone muttered, "I've never seen that before." Another whispered, "That wasn't luck." Maya lowered her weapon, set it down gently, and turned to him. Her voice carried like a blade drawn slow. "You chose the target. I only aimed." The words hung heavy, sharper than the shots themselves. Harrington's jaw tightened. He looked at the men, searching for laughter, for reassurance, for anything to cover the crack in his armor. One soldier forced a chuckle, but it died quickly. Harrington straightened, raising his chin. "Then, we raised the stakes. Station 5. Moving targets. You think you're special. Let's see you keep up." The crowd stirred, excitement returning. The general's arrogance burned hotter now, desperate. Maya gave no expression, only a single nod. "Fine," the narrator pressed. He thought he was baiting her, but pride is its own snare, and every step he took drew the noose tighter. She wasn't playing his game. She was letting him play himself into ruin. The range officers moved quickly, setting up the track. Mechanical targets slid into place, designed to shift unpredictably. The hum of gears filled the room. Harrington turned to the crowd, grinning wide again, his mask restored. "Now this," he said, "is where amateurs fall apart. Watch carefully." He picked up his weapon, braced, and began. Shots cracked out, chasing the moving silhouettes. Some hit, some missed. His tally was respectable, enough to keep the men clapping. When he was done, he turned dramatically, spreading his arms. 24 out of 30. Not bad for a warm-up. The crowd cheered, though thinner this time. Maya stepped forward, quiet, calm, no performance. The targets began to move, faster, more erratic. She lifted her weapon. The first shot rang out, striking clean. The second, the third, each precise, each timed to the smallest rhythm. The sound of her fire was a metronome. When the line reeled back, her tally was perfect. 30 out of 30. The silence was absolute. Someone whispered, almost reverent, "Who the hell is she?" Harrington's smile cracked. His hands flexed, restless. Maya lowered her weapon, her voice steady. "You wanted a show? You got one." No one laughed this time. The range officers reset the field. Paper targets swapped, tracks oiled and humming. The audience had grown larger. Soldiers from other sections slipped in quietly, drawn by rumors spreading through the base like smoke. General Harrington adjusted his gloves with deliberate movements, but his grin no longer reached his eyes. "All right, folks," he boomed, voice strained but commanding. "Enough warm-up games. Let's get serious. 50 meters is child's play. Let's stretch it to 200. Let's see if our guest can keep up when the training wheels come off." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. 200 meters meant no forgiveness, breathing, trigger discipline, and recoil control all magnified. Maya stood still, weapon resting easily in her hands. She gave no outward sign of concern. The narrator cut through the tension. This was the pivot, the moment arrogance disguised as confidence became desperation. He needed her to fail. He needed silence to return, because silence had always served him. But silence had shifted sides. Harrington took the lane first. He squared his stance, dramatic again, his breathing loud for effect. He fired. The first round struck close to center. Cheers erupted, relief pouring out of the soldiers who wanted their general to remain untouchable. He fired again and again. 10 shots total. The target reeled, but 8 hits clustered decently. 2 strays. Respectable. Harrington puffed out his chest, turning to the room. "That, gentlemen, is precision under pressure. Let's see if our hobbyist can even reach the paper." The laughter was hollow this time. Maya stepped forward. She adjusted nothing. No dramatics. No words. She lowered her goggles, slid a fresh magazine in, and leveled the rifle with practiced ease. The room stilled. Her first shot cracked out direct center. The second landed clean. The third, the fourth. Her rhythm was steady, almost mechanical, each motion flowing into the next. By the 10th shot, the air felt heavy. When the target reeled back, the paper looked untouched until the officers leaned closer. All 10 rounds had passed through the same torn hole. The crowd gasped. Some muttered curses. One soldier whispered, That's impossible." Another shook his head. "No, that's training, serious training." Harrington's jaw tightened, his hands flexing. He forced out a laugh, brittle as glass. "Cute trick, party favor. But snipers don't shoot paper. They shoot men who move and shoot back." The words hung. A weak attempt to reclaim ground. Maya finally spoke, voice calm, controlled. "You asked for shots. I gave you shots. Simple. Undeniable." The narrator pressed in. This was truth without ornament. The kind of truth power fears most, not shouted, not begged, but spoken plainly, leaving no ground to retreat. The soldiers shifted uncomfortably. Loyalty chained them to silence, but awe pulled them elsewhere. Some glanced at Harrington, others at Maya, sensing a fracture widening. One young soldier muttered under his breath, "That's sniper work." His comrade hushed him quickly, but the seed was planted. Harrington stepped forward, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "You think you've embarrassed me, but you're just a show pony. You don't belong here." Maya looked at him, unblinking. "You know that's not true." For a flicker of a moment, his face betrayed recognition, not of her shots but of her. The narrator cut sharp. He remembered. He knew, and memory was the one thing he couldn't silence with laughter. The general straightened quickly, masks sliding back on. He raised his voice to the crowd. "Next round, moving silhouettes, long distance. Let's keep this party going." But the men's cheers were slower now, hesitant. The balance was shifting, and Harrington knew it. The air inside the range had changed. The laughter that once filled the room had thinned into whispers, reverent, uncertain. Soldiers still lingered, but their eyes no longer followed Harrington with blind loyalty. They kept stealing glances at Maya like they were staring at something forbidden. Harrington clapped his hands loudly, trying to drown the silence. "Don't just stand around gawking. Reset the lanes, moving targets at 300 meters. Let's see if lightning can strike a third time." But his voice carried a crack. He wasn't just testing her anymore. He was defending himself. Maya stepped back, removing her gloves, letting the rifle rest on the table. Her stillness was deliberate. The narrator cut in. Silence had become her weapon. Every time she refused to entertain his mockery, she exposed it for what it was, noise covering fear. And fear is louder than any gunshot when pride is on trial. A young soldier, hardly older than 20, leaned toward his friend. His whisper wasn't low enough. "I've seen that kind of grouping before. Overseas. Special operations snipers." His friend hissed, "Shut up before he hears you." But the words traveled. Soldiers nearby turned, murmurs swelling like a current running beneath the floor. Harrington stiffened. His eyes flicked to Maya. And for the first time his grin faltered into something colder recognition. He stepped toward her, lowering his voice. "Where did you learn that? Who trained you?" Maya didn't answer. "Don't play games with me," Harrington pressed, jaw tight. "Those weren't hobbyist shots. That's military work." Her gaze locked with his, steady, unreadable. "You already know." The soldiers around them exchanged glances. Tension thickened. Harrington barked suddenly, turning back to the room. "Rumors. That's all I hear. Ghost stories. Nobody in this room knows a damn thing. She's just a civilian with a lucky trigger finger." But the protest sounded defensive, hollow. A staff sergeant spoke up cautiously, voice respectful but curious. "Sir, I've heard stories about a woman sniper in Kandahar. Took out targets no one else could even see. Some said she saved entire squads." Another soldier added, "Yeah, they called her Shadow. I thought it was just a myth." All eyes turned toward Maya. She remained still, calm. Her silence confirmed more than words could. Harrington's face flushed. He slammed his fist against the divider. "Enough. Campfire stories don't belong here. She's nobody. She's nothing." But the men didn't laugh this time. The narrator's voice cut like glass. The higher the pedestal, the sharper the fall. He had built his career on silence, silence of witnesses, silence of truth, silence of those erased. But silence, once broken, spreads faster than fire. Harrington leaned closer again, his voice a hiss meant only for her. "They buried you for a reason. You were supposed to stay gone." Maya finally spoke, her tone low, edged with history. I didn't bury myself. His jaw clenched. You don't belong here anymore. She held his stare. And yet, here I am. The murmurs grew louder. The soldiers began piecing the fragments together. The precision, the silence, the general's cracks in composure. One soldier whispered, "If she's who I think she is." Then he, his comrade, shushed him quickly, but the thought lingered, unspoken yet heavy. Harrington turned back to the crowd, his mask reforming in desperation. Fine. If she wants to play legend, then let her. 300 meters, moving targets. Let's see if myths bleed when reality shows up. The room didn't cheer this time. They watched, waiting. Maya pulled her gloves back on, lifted the rifle, and stepped forward without a word. The narrator pressed in. She had nothing left to prove. Every shot was no longer for herself. It was for truth, pressing against the silence of erasure. And truth, once unmasked, demands to be seen. The stage belonged to her now, and the general knew it. The air was thick with anticipation. No one laughed now. No one whispered insults. The soldiers stood stiff, eyes darting between Maya and the general, as though history itself was unfolding in the cracks of fluorescent light and drifting gun smoke. The targets slid out on the mechanical arm silhouettes at 300 meters, programmed to sway and dart unpredictably. Their motions mimicked combatants, erratic and fast. Even for skilled marksmen, this drill humbled most. General Harrington stepped forward first. He raised his rifle with exaggerated confidence, shoulders squared, jaw tight. "Watch and learn," he barked. Though the bravado rang brittle, he fired in sharp bursts, chasing the moving shapes. Some hits landed, some went wide. His form was solid, but strain bled through every movement. When the final target reeled back, 21 of 30 shots had struck. Good, not perfect. The soldiers clapped lightly, more out of obligation than awe. Harrington turned, grinning with forced bravado. 21, better than any civilian could dream of. His glare landed on Maya. "Your turn." She stepped forward without a word. The narrator's voice slipped in. She carried no armor of arrogance, no shield of theatrics. Her weapon was discipline, her silence a blade. Every motion had been carved by years of erasure and betrayal. They stripped her name from records, but they could never strip the rhythm of her hands, the stillness of her eye. Maya adjusted her stance. Her breathing slowed. The rifle came up smooth, effortless. The targets began their erratic dance. Crack, first shot, direct hit, crack, second shot, center again. Her rhythm was surgical, a steady pulse. Each bullet landed with precision, no wasted motion, no correction needed. Soldiers leaned forward unconsciously, caught in the cadence. When the final shot echoed, silence crushed the room. The targets reeled back, all 30, marked, perfect. A low murmur swept the room, rising into disbelief. 30 out of 30. That's impossible. No, it's not impossible. It's her. The general's face tightened, color draining. His grin vanished. Maya lowered the rifle, resting it gently on the table. She removed her gloves slowly, unhurried. Finally, she spoke. Her voice was calm, but it carried the weight of a hammer. "You stacked the deck, and I still won." The words cut deeper than any insult. The soldiers shifted uncomfortably. Some looked at Harrington, others at Maya. The room had changed. Authority was no longer unquestioned, it was cracking. The narrator's commentary pressed in. Arrogance demands obedience, but obedience falters when truth becomes undeniable. Each bullet she fired was not just a strike on paper. It was a fracture in his mask, a crack in a system built on silence and fear. Harrington tried to laugh, but it rang hollow. So what? Paper targets don't shoot back. This proves nothing. A soldier spoke up, hesitant but loud enough. "Sir, with respect, 30 out of 30 proves everything." The room froze. No one ever contradicted him. Not here, not in front of others. Harrington's jaw clenched. His eyes darted, searching for loyalty, but found hesitation, doubt. He turned back to Maya, his voice dropping into a growl. "Don't think this makes you somebody again. You're nothing without the uniform, and you'll never wear it again." Maya met his glare with stillness. "You're right. I don't need a uniform. I never did." The murmurs rose again, soldiers whispering fiercely now. "She is shadow-eyed. I heard she was forced out." "Yeah, because she exposed someone." Corruption could have been the whispers, died when Harrington snapped his head toward them. Rage burned in his eyes, but rage couldn't erase what they'd just seen. The narrator cut like a blade. He wanted her silence. Instead, her precision gave her voice. Every perfect shot was testimony. Every round was memory refusing to die. And the more she revealed without speaking, the more his authority dissolved. For the first time, the general looked cornered, and Maya hadn't even raised her voice. The range smelled of cordite and sweat, but the real weight in the air wasn't gunpowder, it was unease. The men who once laughed at every word from General Harrington now shifted in silence, eyes darting between him and Maya. Harrington's face was stone, but the twitch in his jaw betrayed him. He barked, loud enough for all. You think one parlor trick makes you a soldier? Don't fool yourself. You'll never be what we are. You don't belong in this circle. Maya said nothing. She stood steady, eyes calm, her silence louder than his shouting. A young private muttered near the back, "She already proved she's better than all of us." Harrington's head snapped toward the voice. His glare froze the private into silence, but the words had already spread, lodged in every soldier's mind. The narrator's voice cut sharp. Power doesn't collapse all at once. It cracks first, small fractures spreading where silence used to hold. Every whisper, every sideways glance, every refusal to laugh at his jokes widened the break. Harrington turned back to Maya. He stepped closer, his voice dropping low, venom threading each word. "You think you humiliated me. You're just a bitter relic. I was there when you were erased. You should have stayed erased." The soldiers stiffened. Whispers rippled. Erased. The word hung heavy. Maya's eyes met his, steady. Her voice, when it came, was calm, measured. "You didn't erase me. You buried the truth. But truth doesn't stay buried." Gasps flickered through the crowd. Harrington's composure cracked. His face twisted, and for the first time, the polished general let his rage slip free. "You don't deserve to wear the same skin as the rest of us," he spat. The silence that followed was heavier than gunfire. The soldiers froze, shock rippling through the room. No one had expected him to bare himself so openly, so brutally. The narrator pressed, and there it was, the mask gone. The truth of his authority revealed not discipline, not leadership, but hatred dressed in medals. Racism without disguise. Maya didn't flint. Her hands rested on the table, relaxed. Her gaze was unbroken steel. "Now they see you," she said quietly. Several soldiers looked away, uncomfortable. Others stared at Harrington, faces tight with disgust. A staff sergeant muttered under his breath, "Sir, with respect." That was out of line. Harrington spun on him. "What did you say?" The sergeant stiffened but didn't back down. "You heard me." The room shifted. For the first time, someone in uniform had challenged him out loud. Harrington's voice roared, desperate now. "You'll all shut up. Every last one of you. She's nothing. A ghost. A fraud." But his voice cracked under the weight of disbelief spreading across the room. The louder he shouted, the weaker he sounded. Maya picked up her rifle once more. She stepped into the lane with calm grace, ignoring his shouting. The targets slid out again. She didn't even wait for silence. Her shots cracked in flawless rhythm. Every moving silhouette hit in clean succession, faster than the system could reset. When the last target dropped, she lowered the rifle. Her voice was soft, but it carried across the entire range. "I don't need to prove myself. You proved me already by trying to erase me." The soldiers erupted into murmurs. Some pulled out phones, recording now, no longer afraid. They had seen too much to unsee. The narrator's words fell heavy. This was the turning point, the moment authority built on fear and silence fractured beyond repair. His slurs, his rage, his cracks exposed not by her defiance, but by her calm precision. His downfall had already begun, and he was the last to realize it. Harrington stood frozen, rage boiling, the cracks in his authority now visible to all. Phones were raised, fingers swiped, record. In an era where silence once meant safety, the soldiers now chose evidence. General Harrington noticed too late. His bark came out hoarse. "Put those down. That's an order." But his voice no longer commanded. It trembled, cracked, the tone of a man begging, not leading. The narrator cut in sharp. "Authority thrives on perception. When perception collapses, the uniform is just cloth." The stars on his shoulders no longer shielded him from truth. Maya didn't lift her voice. She didn't need to. "They'll see it now," she said, her eyes steady on him. "What you tried to bury, what you still are." Harrington lunged forward, face red, but two sergeants stepped in instinctively. Not to protect him, but to block him. The message was clear. The men no longer stood with him. One private muttered, shaky but firm, "It's all on video." Another soldier whispered, "They'll tear him apart for this." The murmurs grew. What began as a trickle of doubt swelled into a current of defiance. Harrington's desperation curdled into venom. You think command will believe you? You're nobodies. They'll side with me, always me. But his words rang hollow. Even he didn't believe them now. Maya spoke again, voice calm as stone. They won't need to believe me. They'll believe you. Every word you just said. The soldiers nodded, their phones capturing his earlier outburst, his slur, his rage. In those recordings, no editing was needed. His downfall was self-authored. The narrator pressed. Poetic justice is not delivered by bullets. It is delivered by truth, exposed at the right moment. She had carried silence long enough. Now the silence was his. One soldier, bolder than the rest, stepped forward. Sir, with respect, you dishonored the uniform. You dishonored us. The words landed like a shot. Harrington froze, realizing the chain of loyalty was gone. Maya didn't gloat. She didn't smile. She simply set the rifle down on the table, walked past him, and spoke one last line as she left the range. You erased my name. Today, you erased your own. The room stayed still. No applause, no cheering, just the weight of truth settling like ash. Harrington turned, desperate for some sign of loyalty, but found only cold stares and the unwavering glow of red recording lights. The narrator's final line cut clean. His empire of fear collapsed not by rebellion, but by exposure. The soldiers no longer laughed. They no longer obeyed. In the silence he left behind, his authority cracked, splintered, and fell. Maya's footsteps echoed as she left the building. Each step carried her further from the shadows. He cast and closer to the light that would finally reveal what had been hidden. The Pentagon halls echoed with clipped footsteps. Screens lit up with headlines before Harrington even arrived. General's racist outburst at range caught on camera. Clips spread faster than his denial. The recordings were everywhere. Soldiers had uploaded them to forums, to news feeds, to accounts with millions of eyes. Harrington stormed into the chamber, uniform stiff, voice sharp. This is slander, staged, enemy propaganda. But the room didn't bend. Generals and officials sat in cold silence, their expressions tight. One officer slid a tablet across the table. On the screen, his own face filled the frame, eyes wild, voice spewing hate. The slur rang out crystal clear. His denial dissolved instantly. The narrator, cut like steel. The mask once shattered cannot be rebuilt. His words, his tone, his fury captured not by enemies, but by his own men. No narrative could erase the evidence he had created with his own mouth. Sir, one of the Joint Chiefs said flatly, your conduct disgraces the institution. We are initiating immediate proceedings for removal. Harrington slammed a fist against the table. I gave my life to this country. You can't erase me like some. But the irony hung heavy. He had erased others, and now the erasure was his. Across the city, news anchors dissected every clip. Civilians replayed his tirade, astonished that such venom lived in someone so decorated. The country buzzed with condemnation. Meanwhile, Maya watched quietly from a small apartment window. No victory dances, no champagne. Her face stayed still, reflective, the narrator observed. For those erased, justice does not arrive as joy. It arrives as silence, a void where oppression once stood, a confirmation that the fight was real, and the truth undeniable. Back in the chamber, Harrington's last defenses crumbled. Stripped of titles, command, respect, he left the building not as a general but as a disgraced man. No salute followed him. No soldier turned to acknowledge his exit. His career, his name, his authority collapsed in a single week. Maya turned from the window, whispered only to herself, not revenge, balance. Autumn leaves drifted across the memorial ground. Rows of stone markers caught the late sun, names etched in granite, some remembered, many forgotten. Maya stood alone before one unmarked space where her name should have been. For years, the record books had erased her missions buried, her service denied, her title stripped. But today was different. Behind her, footsteps approached, not hostile, not mocking, measured, respectful. A group of younger soldiers gathered, some in uniform, others in plain clothes. They didn't carry cameras. They didn't carry weapons. They carried flowers, journals, folded letters. One soldier spoke softly, voice rough with emotion. Ma'am, we've read the files. We know what you did. We know what they tried to hide. You were the best shot this country ever had. Another added, they can't erase you anymore. We won't let them. Maya's hands brushed the cool stone. She didn't speak yet. Her silence was a weight they felt. The narrator whispered through the moment, "History bends slowly, truth waits. Erasure can last decades, but not forever." The tide of silence breaks when one voice, calm and unbroken, refuses to disappear. From across the memorial lawn, an official delegation approached. Among them, a young colonel carried a buffed inside, a medal dulled with years of dust. He stopped before Maya, his tone steady but reverent. "On behalf of this nation, we return what was stolen. Your record has been corrected. Your name restored. Your service acknowledged." He opened the box. The medal gleamed, finally free of the shadows it had been buried in. Maya took it, her grip firm, not trembling. Her eyes lifted to the horizon. Behind her, whispers spread through the soldiers. Not about Harrington anymore. His name had already sunk, forgotten in disgrace. What lived on now was hers, the truth carried in every retelling, every shared clip, every soldier who had seen her calm precision and her unshakable defiance. She finally spoke, voice quiet but cutting through the air. "I never fought for medals. I fought for respect, for those who came after me. That's the only legacy worth leaving." Silence followed, not heavy, not oppressive, but cleansing. The narrator closed with finality. Injustice does not end with one downfall, but each act of exposure, each refusal to be silenced, pushes the story forward. She was not erased. She was remembered, and in that remembrance, balance returned. Maya set the medal against the stone, leaving it there not as a prize, but as a marker, a testimony that what had been stolen was reclaimed. Then she walked away, shoulders squared, footsteps steady. Behind her, the younger soldiers straightened their backs, carrying her name into the future.